Hi, beautiful women. Shakti here. How are you doing? I am feeling called to speak this evening on the topic of what is awakening. So this Facebook group is called Living Shakti Awake, I think, and then it says Bringing Tantra to Life, I think. I'm someone who's been teaching feminine awakening, sexual and spiritual awakening for women for many years. My book, Rapture, is called A Guide to Sexual and Spiritual Awakening for Women. Over previous years, I've taught the year group, Awakening Shakti, my 9-month year group program. So this word, awakening, is used a lot. I use it a lot. And it's being used a lot out there these days. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today, and it's interesting how during the pandemic, all these groups popped up which had the word awaken or awakening in them. But what I discovered when I joined those groups and began to interact with people is that their idea of awakening was very different to mine. And even though I would use that word to refer to my life path, my calling, my vocation, my experience and understanding of it, was just very different from some other people. So what does awakening mean? What is it to awaken sexually and spiritually as a woman? What is it to awaken as a woman? What does that really mean? And why do we even care? Why do we even care? So for me, this calling to awakening has been strong for a long time. And I think in a way it's a seed that we all come in with. You know, when I was a teenager, I walked into a church looking for God. And that seed of seeking was just innate to me. It wasn't because I came from a religious family. My family are complete atheists. So it wasn't anything to do with my family environment. It was just this desire to understand life and to find meaning to life, and this question of like, why am I here? What is it about? What is life? What is this existence, right? Those fundamental questions. And funnily enough, much later on in life, I was a Christian, and then I gave that up, and I kind of went into a period of forgetting. And then my awakening began, what I would call my awakening, began to happen in my late 30s when I stepped out of my previous lives as a business person and as an academic, and I took up teaching a conscious dance practice called the Nia technique, which is based in a profound understanding of the body-mind-spirit connection and is a profound teaching on embodied awareness. So that's how it all began for me. And then much later on, even after that, so that's over 20 years ago now, that's like about 23 years ago, when I discovered Tantra and began to read the Radiance Sutras, which are a beautiful translation of an ancient tantric text called the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. And in that text, it's set up as a dialogue between Shakti, the divine feminine, and Shiva, the divine masculine. And Shakti asks those questions to Shiva. I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have the book with me now, but in essence she says, what is this energy coursing through my body? What is this existence we call life? What is this light and form and beauty I see around me? Can you explain it to me? So in essence, she was asking those questions. What is life? What is this energy? What is this heart that's beating in my body? What is it to be here? And Shiva goes on to answer those questions. And so for me, Tantra, and it wasn't always this, I must be honest, but as I came to understand it more deeply through practice and study, Tantra is a path, one path of awakening, by which I mean the realization of self. What do I mean by the realization of self? I mean the direct recognition that I am one with divine, the recognition that I am one with all, the recognition that I am a spark of divinity housed in this physical body for a short period of time in the infinite cycle of life and birth and death. And the tantric path is one way that we can recognize ourselves as that. But there are many other ways. But ultimately, to me, that is the meaning of awakening. We awaken out of the sleep state, or the unconscious state, or the state of ignorance, or the state of forgetting, where we are unaware temporarily, we forget temporarily that we come from God and we return to God, that we are already divine, that we are already love, and we forget, and we become so identified with this self, this human self, that we lose touch with divinity. We lose touch with that aspect of our roots, our source, the source we come from, return to, and we always are. We lose touch with that. We disconnect from it. We forget. That's the definition of ignorance. And awakening is the realization, or the remembering, or the opening of our eyes, the removal of the veil from our eyes of forgetting and ignorance, and seeing clearly once again, this is I am that I am. And it's not just a seeing, it's a knowing, and it's an experiencing, and it's an embodiment. Very important. It's not a knowledge that can be gleaned from reading books or studying, even as there is a divine paradox in this. The dedicated devotion to certain practices can bring us closer to that recognition. So it's like no practice is needed to know this, and yet devoted and disciplined practice can make that recognition easier for us to find, perhaps is one way to say it. The other thing that then goes alongside this is that as this recognition dawns, and for most people it is not an overnight shift from one state of consciousness to a next, to a different one. For most people it is a gradual process, and it is also an ongoing process. There is never an end to it, and there is no hierarchy to it either. But as this kind of, think of two aspects. I can't use my other hand because I'm holding my phone, because I've lost my phone holding thing. There's like your divine self and your human self. And some people live completely in the human self for their whole lives, forgetting that they have a divine self, that they are the divine, that human self is divine. They forget that. They cannot see it, and they never see it in this particular lifetime. Some people have glimpses of it. But for me, the true path of awakening is when we know this, and then we begin the journey of the marriage, or the merger, or the integration of those two aspects in our present day, current lived experience. So again, people can have this misconception that awakening is about attaining some saintly, beatific, most holy, radiant, ascended, transcendent state. And it is not that unless that aspect is completely and fully integrated with every tiny detail of your human self, your shadows, your wounds, your traumas, all the ways you keep yourself separate from God and you keep yourself separate from other people. And so it will show itself in your everyday life, in your relationships. It will show itself in your everyday life, in your challenges. It will show itself every day in your everyday life in the way you react or respond to things. And that is where the awakening is happening, or the invitation is for it to happen. Not out there in the future, not up there in the sky, but right here in the everyday of life, in the everyday of every part of life. In, for example, speaking personally, being an exhausted single mother looking after 2 children and, feeling at my wit's end. In caring for dying parents and seeing the horror of their suffering and feeling the horror of their suffering and dealing simultaneously with aspects of myself that still feel, inner child aspects that still feel resentful and judgment and blame towards them. This is where the nitty-gritty of awakening is happening, in the meeting of these parts of ourselves with love, with compassion, with presence, with awareness, so that we become whole, so that the energy that is being invested in those unresolved traumas or wounds or those unintegrated aspects of ourselves, so that energy can be freed up, so we can be liberated, so we can be free. Because our true state is complete freedom, complete liberation. And the other thing that then also happens is that we begin to see through all the lies and all the manipulation and conditioning that is so pervasive in the world to encourage us not to see and not to know who and what we really are. So for women, and this is where I see a distinction between men and women, and why I still therefore address women in a distinct way from men. For women, there's specific conditioning to blind you, to make you forget who you really are as a woman. And so that particular conditioning will pertain very much to the areas within you as a woman that are the ways in which you naturally and organically connect with divine. So that will be your body, that will be your sexuality, that will be your capacity to love and relate. All of those aspects of the divine feminine, your capacity for intuitive gnosis, for knowing beyond the mind, for downloading cosmic intuition, for feeling and sensing deeply and profoundly, for receiving information from other realms. All these things which have been denied, belittled, demeaned, pushed out of the mainstream agenda, pushed out of world decision making. So all the ways in which you have bought into this lie of feminine being of lesser value, all these ways you have bought into your body being wrong or shameful, all the ways you've been bought into your sexuality being shameful, dirty and wrong, these are parts of the conditioning which the awakening process will reveal and invite you to throw off, take off. And it's not necessarily that simple, and it's not necessarily that easy, but that is basically the invitation of awakening as woman. When you get deeper with it and you're able to connect with your essence at a kind of a level below the personality or beyond the personality, then there again is a sort of even deeper reservoir of truth and integration that is possible, that is beyond gender, that is beyond identity, that is beyond all those outer or upper layers of constructed self. And it's a process where, as that integration and meeting with our divine essence happens, it then alchemizes and is made apparent in our human self and in the way in which we show up in the world and the way in which we interact in the world and what is manifested in our lives around us. So there's an ongoing alchemy that happens. A couple more things I want to say before I finish, and that is because of the patriarchal programming, people can get very hung up on comparing and contrasting self with other or other with other, and thinking in linear hierarchical terms, which is not what this is about. There is no hierarchy to awakening. There is no better than. There is no higher than. There are differences. There are unique expressions. And there is no one person who has all the answers. There is no one person who has attained that state to whom we can give away our power as the leader. It's very important for this process to be self-reflecting and self-directed. And again, part of the journey of self-realization is the recognition that the divine lives here, the guru is here, and nowhere else. And that is not in a narcissistic way, because that recognition is the most profoundly humbling thing. So that's one thing I just want to emphasize, and then kind of want to finish with this quote from Lao Tzu, which I'm sharing everywhere at the moment. If you want to awaken all of humanity, then awaken all of yourself. If you want to eliminate the suffering in the world, then eliminate all that is negative in yourself. Truly, the greatest gift you have to give is that of your own self-transformation. And this quote feels so important because that is my own realization at the moment as I inquire, how can I be of greatest service to the world, to humanity, to life? And it is simply in that, through my own self-transformation. For me, that is the highest service I can offer. And perhaps that may inspire or give comfort to those of you who might be feeling hopeless or helpless when you look out and see what's going on in the world. Just remember that to come back to self, and wherever you are projecting out blame, wherever you are projecting out hate, wherever you are projecting out division, bring it all back and tend to your inner self, tend to your inner child, tend to your wounded parts, tend to your traumatized parts, tend to your separated out parts, tend to the deepest level at which you can know yourself as God, tend to the deepest level at which you can know yourself as love, and move through all that is in the way of that, because there will be blocks, there will be barriers, there will be beliefs, there will be aspects that you will knock up against. That is the journey of awakening. So it's profound, and it's simple, and it's challenging, and it's vulnerable, and it has its ups and downs. It has its moments of transcendent bliss, and it has its moments of absolute abject despair. And that is all part of it. That is all part of it. So don't think, if you're going through a dark night of the soul, that you've lost the plot, that you've kind of fallen off the tightrope, or, that kind of image of losing touch with your divinity. Sometimes we have to go into the darkness to retrieve aspects of ourselves and rise again, remade, reborn, refreshed, with greater clarity, with greater power, with greater essence shining within us. And that is felt. It's felt in your field. It's felt. So every time you do these inner journeys of descending and ascending and integrating, it is felt in the field. Do not buy into the myth that is sold that we are all separate. We are all interconnected. So whatever you do, whatever you be, affects everybody in the collective. Whatever you transmit, what frequency you hold, affects the collective. So come back to your own heart, come back to your own wound, come back to your own negativity, come back to your own self-transformation. Make that your number one priority. And if we all did that, then the outer reality would shift pretty quickly into the beautiful potential that is there for our planet and for humanity. So that's my little share on what is awakening. Feel free to share any questions, any reflections, any resonance, any disresonance. I'm not the speaker of the absolute truth, I'm just sharing what wants to come through me. We don't have to agree. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. So share, what is it for you, and how have my words landed for you, and what is it you are being called to right now at this time. And I can see that you're there, Anastasia. Hi. Just want to send you love. We haven't seen or spoken to each other for a long time. So beautiful to see you there. Hi, lovely. And hello and love to everybody else who's watching or watches this back. Sending you much love. Bye for now.